There was a time when the city of Scottsdale was considered the employer of choice for public safety professionals in the competitive market of public safety personnel, particularly in matters of attraction and retention of personnel. Some might argue that this premise is either past its prime or not relevant to the quality of public safety and the quality of life experience in Scottsdale. Should Scottsdale be the employer of choice for public safety professionals?
I addressed that a little bit earlier, and yes, we should be the employer of choice for public safety professionals. And we do that by making this an enviable place to work. We do this by pay. We do this by keeping morale high. There's a whole lot of other things. It's not just pay that people work for. We need to let everybody in public safety know that they're respected and that we want them to be part of our organization. It's expensive to train people for another community, and I hate losing people to that when we put them through a rigorous process, something that we are proud of in Scottsdale. So we need to be the employer of choice, and we do that by pay, by morale, and some other things we can work on.
Basically, everything, you know, even though we've all talked tonight about the pay and the importance of pay, I mean, that's crucial. You know, people aren't getting paid for their work in a competitive manner. It's going to start impacting their morale. However, I have not seen any impact of that in how they actually do their job. I mean, I've seen the firefighters work. I've seen them in their firehouses. I've seen the police department personnel, and their attitude towards this is tremendous. They just want to be respected and compensated for their efforts. I think it's more than the pay. I think it's the pay. I think it's working short-staffed. It's positions that were cut and people working other people's jobs. I think it's the pension has to be reviewed, the new insurance premiums. It's everything. It's not just their salary. And I think they deserve to have that reviewed, and that in turn will increase morale and will hopefully be able to not just retain our good personnel, but actually attract those.
Well, I believe we need to get back to being an employer of choice. The economy has affected all cities and all public safety departments, but it's time to get back to providing fair wages and salaries that are commensurate with other communities. But I'm not one that really believes that you can buy loyalty. I believe loyalty and retention and long-tenured officers come from respect and empowering those officers and being a part of the team. I believe that that is so much as important as fair wages. It's important to retain because it costs the city $100,000 or more to train an officer to be street ready. And that is very, very expensive. We need to get back to respecting our officers of public
safety. Well, definitely, like our community is one of the most sought-after communities to live in the Southwest. It should also be the most sought-after job for public safety people. And it's money. That's not all of it. Some of it is empowering our professional law enforcement personnel to be able to do what they want to do. And I know that there's a certain amount of frustration out there because there's an invisible policy, and some of that's down in the entertainment district, and it's very dangerous. They're not allowed to do what they need to do. And interesting, you know, David Gonzalez, who is head of the U.S. Marshal's Office in Arizona, he opinioned a few days ago. He said that one of the things that really needs to be done is better communication, better interagency cooperation between all of the different law enforcement policies. And I think that there's some resistance to that in Scottsdale, and I'd like to see that improved.
I spoke to an officer one night. I asked him where he was from. He said he was from the Midwest. I promised I wouldn't tell you his city, but it was from Indiana. And he said he applied to the Scottsdale Police Department because of Scottsdale. It was the place he thought he'd want to live. The ironic part was he couldn't afford to live in Scottsdale. Now, this is one of our sworn officers to protect our citizens. Out of 19 municipalities, we rank 17th in pay. Do we rank #1 in tourism in this city, in the Metro Phoenix area? Absolutely. If you want to find a golf course best in the world, where do you go? Scottsdale. No offense to any other fine city around us, but we are the best. Resorts, shopping, industry, we are the best. So these folks, these officers, come here for a very specific reason. They believe that the brand that is Scottsdale should match the compensation that one would expect from a city of this stature. That simply isn't the case right now. Now, we're moving in that direction. We're trying to ameliorate the problem. But frankly, it shouldn't have existed in the first place. Thank you.
When I was special ed director in Scottsdale School District, 13 years, and we went through some pretty rough times financially. What we found is we didn't have the highest paid salary schedule, where at times we were not even in the middle. But we had teachers with longevity, and they were dang good teachers, because they were treated with civility, with respect, with dignity as colleagues, not as just employees, to be eschewed. And what happened is we had a new superintendent in who had no regard for the employees, let alone the teachers. Basically said, you know, the school district can buy out my contract. 3 others have already bought my contract out, and I'll retire soon. The respect was not for the employees. We had a mass exodus, and I was one of them after 13 years. I thought I was going to retire from there. So when you treat your employees with respect and civility and regard, they're going to become loyal employees who will stay, even if it's not the best pay scale, but it's got to be a competitive one.
I'm glad we're all talking civility here. I think civility rolls downhill. I think when the council and when the leaders are civil, that creates a culture, and that culture permeates the whole workplace. Now, with that, I like culture and I like good pay, because I want you to make a buck and enjoy coming to work.
Yes, we should be the employer of choice for public safety. There's a number of very obvious reasons for that, well, not the least of which is if you're pulled over or you're in some kind of a situation where you need a public safety officer, you certainly want the best. And the Scottsdale Police Department competes with every other municipality around here for those people. We want our police force to be able to be the place that we can attract and get the best police officers for the job. And I do think that 2 things are key there. They've been said, but I'm going to repeat them a little bit differently. One, you can't ignore pay. I don't think pay is the sole source. And we maybe don't have to have the best pay, but it's got to be far more competitive than it is now, number one. And number 2, I think, is attention to the matters that the public safety needs. I mean, I go to virtually every council meeting, and the luxurious treatment our zoning attorneys get, who take up almost all of our council time, versus the way our chief of police and chief of fire have been treated down there, is astonishing. And I'm sure that when Chief Rockville and Chief Olson are up in front of the council, I'm sure a lot of police officers are watching.
I believe with the fire department or public safety as a whole, there's obviously a community within the Phoenix metropolitan area that talks. And if they don't feel, as a whole, from Scottsdale, that it's permeating, that they're being worked together with and not working for the council, that you're going to have a lot of people that don't want to come here. I had questions about the fire department, so I didn't just want to go out and read what was on our website. I called up our fire department and took a tour with them from top to bottom, understood where they're living, from the trailer that they live in up north off Dynamite to some of the nicer facilities down here in the south. And I think that's something you're going to want moving forward as a city council person, not somebody that just goes out with public safety, but somebody that goes out throughout the entire city that really truly understands what the citizens want. So in my campaign, I walked over 125 to 150 miles now, I have to look at last count, knocking on doors, listening to what citizens want, not reading in the paper, not reading the latest poll, not trying to do it on Facebook, but trying to find out directly at someone's door. And that's why I did it with the fire department. And that's the way I want to be, is not to have public safety or any rank and file come into my office or come speak at me while I'm elevated on the council seat down there, but go down and speak with them. Like anybody that has worked for somebody before, you don't want your manager to call you into his office. It's intimidating. You want somebody that's going to go down there and work with you, not have somebody who you're going to work for.
I agree that we need to pay a competitive wage in order to be an employer of choice. But I think overall, the overriding idea that I have in my mind and have had for the last few years is that the respect and value that comes down from the council has tremendous impact on the employees. And I've seen nights when it's not been pretty. I think a couple of times have been mentioned by Chris Schaffner about some things that were said to the police chief and the fire chief that I feel were inappropriate. But I think that some things that several councilmen said just about employees, and in a much derogatory fashion, probably not so much this year as last year, that I know of one instance in particular after that council meeting that someone actually quit over a comment that was made. And it seems to me that we should be far more sensitive when we're in the council meetings, that we have an audience of employees, not just the public, but employees who are watching us and watching what we say. And if they don't feel that they're valued, then they're going to go looking elsewhere because they don't want to stay in the city of Scottsdale and be treated the way that they feel they've been treated. So I'm hoping that we've made a change this year. We're giving some pay increases, and we're trying to tell people that we do value them, because we do. And I'm hoping that morale is improving. I think it is somewhat, but it's going to take a while to get back to being that place, to being the employer of choice. And I hope that we've taken some right steps in the right direction, and we need to have some people on the council who will be respectful of the employees.
Thank you, Ms. Klapp. Mr. Phillips, have you commented on this? Mr. Phillips, have you?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, I'm looking for you then.
Well, again,
I got to get back to, I don't want to micromanage the police or the fire department. You know, in the air conditioning business and a lot of the trades, our average pay is about $65 an hour, and we don't take a bullet for anybody, and we certainly don't go into a burning house. So I think wages are really offset. There's something wrong with that. At the same time, you see that when the city goes through the budget process, they say, "Oh, we're paying too much for this. You know, how much is too much?" And then you look and say, "Okay, well, let's just cut their pay by 2% for the next 3 years." And then the next council meeting, they talk about, "Hey, we got this Terror Discovery Center coming up. Let's vote on that. That's $70 million. We'll just get some bond for that." If you can do that, you can compensate the police and fire. I mean, it's too obvious to me. And we have to take care of people. I had employees that I had to lay off, and it's heart-wrenching. And you can't sleep at night. So you got to look at these men and women as people, not as numbers to get rid of as a pay amount.